God's gift of life to me, for every blessing given to me, for all the beauty you give that strengthens me. I'm grateful for God's love, your tender mercies. If not for your grace, where would I be? Oh, it's so amazing. It's so amazing. God's love for me. God's love for me. It's so amazing. It's so amazing. Your gift of life to me, for every blessing given to me, for all the beauty you give that strengthens me. I'm grateful for your love, your tender mercies. If not for your grace, where would I? stand amazed at God. I stand amazed at your. I stand amazed at God. I stand amazed at your strength. I stand amazed at God's power. So amazing. So amazing. Amazing. I stand amazed at God's Come on, say, I stand amazed. I stand amazed at God's strength. Yes, I stand amazed. I stand amazed at God's power. So amazing. So amazing. Amazing. I stand amazed at God's glory. I stand amazed at God's strength. I stand amazed at God's power. So amazing. Amazing.
amazing. That was amazing. This is amazing. Let's give it up. That was glorious. Oh my God. Oh. It is a great blessing to be here and a great joy. I was here a few years ago and had an amazing time, and I'm back again for more of you. It's been a beautiful morning so far. It's my honor to be here. Thank you, Unity, for inviting me again. Thank you, Jean, for your amazing words about this work that I hope to share with you a little bit in our moments together this morning. What I would love for us to remember is that we are anchored in the divine. We are that. We are made of that which we have been praying to. And so over the course of my life, I have recognized that my greatest journey is to accept the bigness of my being. Your greatest journey in this life is to humbly accept your own divinity. As we are here as the divine, operating in the human bandwidth of energy. Now I'm going to share with you an experience that I had, but first let me give you a little background behind it. I was raised in an environment, in a family whose father was a pioneer in energy medicine. In the days when energy and medicine would have never been used in the same sentence. And so our ideas were seemingly radical. They were odd. They were off the beaten path. But they were grounded in wholeness and truth, and that the body has the capacity to heal itself, and that life is in your favor, and that everything that is happening is here in support of your recognizing your greatness. And so I grew up with quantum science as the dinner table conversation, and my mother was steeped in a spiritual history and was very interested in allowing God to be a part of our lives. So I had a father that was a scientist and a mother that was deeply spiritual, played the organ and the piano for her church, and so this was what came together in my background. And then I became a doctor and was utilizing practices of energy medicine that were natural healing techniques that my father was developing, and it was what I knew. It was who I was. And so people got lots of results because I didn't have a question about it. It was all I had ever known. In fact, I've never gone to the doctor to get an antibiotic to heal some ailment that I had. I've only ever utilized natural healing practices. And as I mentioned to the service earlier, I'm 86 years old. And then I also mentioned that's the only lie I will tell you today. All right. But it allows us to entertain the idea that that wholeness. I look pretty good for 86, though, wouldn't you say? I mean, so just go around telling people you're older than you are, and they'll be like, oh, well, this looks pretty good for that. So we have it all backwards, right? We stay 29 forever. I think when I turned 29, I passed my mother up because she was still 29, and I was 30. She was still 29. So what we have to realize is that this life experience here is supposed to be a joyous one. It's supposed to be a grand adventure because we're anchored in the divine. We are heaven. We are heaven here on earth. And so I call it heaven earth. That it's not two separate things, and it isn't two separate worlds that we're supposed to be bridging. Although, because we've been raised believing that it's two separate realities, the next best step for us to do is to consider ourselves the bridge so that we can bring the divine here to earth, that we can bring heaven here to earth and allow the earth to be a better place because of it. All the while, what's happening there is we're building an ability to perceive ourselves as capable of the divine experience. We're building the circuitry to be able to recognize ourselves as made of God stuff. You are made of God stuff. There is no separate God that you are not. Now, if we're not identified and we don't have the circuits in place to perceive it in its wholeness, which is not prejudice, which does not self-loathe, which doesn't have judgment, but has discernment instead, that doesn't think that there is not enough, that isn't caught up in lack. Now, when we're able to operate in that kind of a disposition, then we're truly allowing the God presence that we are to surface out onto the surface of our life. And until then, if we're caught up in our story based upon some past experience that we've had that caused us to believe we're not enough, or that caused us to retract or to retreat in some fashion or another, that allowed us to believe for an instant, or maybe for a week, or maybe for a few decades, maybe, 40, 50 years, maybe, to believe that we're not whole and complete. If we were caught up in some pattern of thinking and perceiving life, then we have had a different life experience than we are capable of having here. Because quantum science is showing us, as if spirituality really needed science to prove anything. It didn't. Spirituality knew it. But what is happening is that science is evolving in such a fashion that it's actually validating what the world of spirituality has been saying forever, which is that we are eternal beings and that we never die, that our spirit at least comes and goes and comes and goes and is eternal. And actually what science is showing us is that everything is energy. And that we are energy, and that this physical body is this big energy field compressed into a body, and that it is our true nature. And what we know about energy is that energy cannot be created or destroyed, and so therefore it's eternal. Kind of sounds like that spiritual conversation, if you ask me, right? So the worlds of science and spirituality are being merged by quantum science. And if quantum science, even if the words are like, make your eyes cross, like, I don't know, I'm not a very scientific person, don't make me go there. Let me just say this. If everyone could take a breath in right now and just exhale, and do that one more time. Deep breath in, just exhale. And then feel what happens right in this moment, right after the And once more. Let's just do that once more. Breath in. And exhale. What happens in that palpable moment after the is wholeness. If you just take your hands right now and slowly raise them and lower them. Manage to dial in your mind to a loving sensation. When you dial your mind into a loving sensation, the air through which you move your hand becomes thicker. So palpable you could feel it, sense it. Can you feel something thicker there? Soften your heart, drop your mind into your heart, take a breath in your belly. And as you raise and lower your hands, you will feel the thickness of the space around you. Can you start to feel it thickening? If not in this moment, you continue to practice that, because the more you drop into your soulful self, your true presence, you become available to another realm. And that, my friends, is the presence of God. It is the presence of the divine. And it is always here. The question is, am I using my mind in such a fashion that I can perceive it? Or am I caught up in my thinking mind so much that I'm dialed into another frequency and it moves right past me and I never even knew that it was there? That presence is what you're actually made of. But we are identified not as that. We don't know that that's who we are. We get it theoretically, but we don't get it on an experiential level until we do. And so quantum science is no more than feeling this presence and knowing that that is you. Spirituality is no less than the same. And yet, we've also been living in our minds, which is designed to see the differences in things. Your mind's job is to find the differences in things, to make distinctions, to make discernments. Reeling out of control, it makes judgments. And that is what pulls you out of the presence that you truly are. If you were to walk about the surface of this planet in your life, aware of this presence, your mind would not go to judgment because it would be reveling in the divine grace that you were experiencing. Because if you are dialed into the frequency of this oneness, you are no longer identified as the mind radio station. You're dialing in to a different frequency. And that frequency of loving presence is the truth of who you are. Loving presence. And when you are having any experience of yourself or others that is different from that, you've simply drawn yourself up to being attached to the mind, and you're experiencing the duality of life that only the mind can present. And it is the reality, the only reality that the mind can know. So if you are caught in a struggle, if you're caught in the friction of life, if you're caught in the dualism of having a glorious day, and then to be followed by, something really landing in the opposite kind of sensation, what is happening in that moment is you are attached to the mind again. And the mind cannot do the job of the soul without being aware of the soul to serve. Einstein said, we are given this beautiful gift of the intuitive and this rational mind to act as its loyal servant. But we've created a culture that honors the servant instead of the gift. And this is the pain that we are living in, and this is what generates spiritual crisis. All we have to do is not only be aware of the intuitive and serve it by knowing that that is the voice of God, and I'll explain why. Not only do we have to do that, we must allow that to be more true, more valuable than anything our mind alone would come up with. There are billions of bits of source, God's source, energy, which we would reference as information in the scientific world. In the spiritual world, we would reference it as grace. We would reference it as the divine falling upon me. We would reference it as the angels that appear to us in crisis when they do. We would reference it as the voice of God, Spirit speaking. And it's the same thing that science is now calling billions of bits of information that are arriving to you every millisecond. That's a lot in a short period of time, if you didn't know. Okay, that's just a bunch, okay? So if that is arriving, and it is, to your personal space as guidance, as information, as the great knowing, and you don't know that that's what's happening, it whisks right past you, and you feel like you're all alone. But if you will dial into the frequency that I'm speaking of, you will catch it and not miss it, and you will know without having to ask 16 of your friends what you should do about this particular situation. You will know and you will walk in the direction. It is the same knowing that brought you here today. After the first service today, people came up to me. One gentleman was saying, I had no idea that you were here, but this is why I got ready and left the house. I had a knowing that there was something. I hadn't been coming for a while. Here I am, and this is why I remember now. And this is the guidance that is attempting to guide you in the form of divine design. Divine design, there is nothing missing here. It's just a matter of not only where are we placing our attention, but what are we allowing to be true about what I'm saying right now. That we are made of the divine, and we are here as the divine, learning how to perceive the truth of who we are. And life shows up as a challenging obstacle course to allow us to bump into this and bump into that and polish ourselves and refine ourselves until those obstacles cause us to turn our attention here to the self, to the true soulful self that we really actually are. Because when we land here as the divine, it's kind of a rough landing. We kind of splat. What was that? We don't know who we are or what's going on or how to make it in this world or how to put the pieces together or how it's supposed to roll and what our role is in this heaven-earth continuum. And it is only a continuum. It's not two separate worlds, by the way. It's all a matter of building the circuitry to be able to perceive that you are divine here. And this is your practice ground to allow yourself to surface as the divine in an unwavering fashion. But because when we land and we splat and our mind goes one way and our body goes another and our breath goes another and the soulful self is just hanging out, waiting to see if it's ever going to be safe to come on in here all the way, which usually doesn't happen until you're about 86. You understand? And by then it's like, hey, don't even try to tell me. I have been there, I have done it, and I'm going to give myself permission to live. Right? So if it's going to happen when you're 86, can you just back it up now? And allow the time between now and 86 to be a reflection of the same kind of liberty? The reason that you don't is because we don't have the circuitry in place to actually feel that way. Until we've gone through life and had the experiences and built the circuits unknowingly, but automatically by the default mechanism called a lifetime. So here's what happened for me. I was going along, minding my business, doing my thing, being a doctor, helping people with everything that I had. And I was stressing out. Even though I grew up with some amazing principles about wholeness, I was feeling unfulfilled. I knew there was more, but I didn't know where it was or what it was or how to find it. And so I was drawn to meditation, which ironically wasn't a part of my upbringing, And so I was drawn to it. And it just kind of pulled me in, sat me down, and instantly when I started meditating, I had transcendental experiences. What I later learned was the blue pearl, which was something that meditators, avid meditators were seeking to achieve, happened the first time I sat down in a formal meditation. I started speaking about it, and some of the other meditators that had been meditating for 30 years were like, what, really? Really? You had that experience? And I thought I was just trying to catch up to where everybody was. But this thing happened instantly for me. And the next time I meditated, additional things happened. And the third time in a serious formal meditation, I lit up to the Atman, to the monad, to the soulful self, to the higher self, however you might reference it if you've been studying any of these things. And all I can share with you about it, if you haven't been studying those things, is that it was glorious and divine. I could see 360 degrees around me in a light so brilliantly bright. It was 10 times brighter than the brightest day in the desert I had ever seen. And I could see the earth beneath me about the size of a marble, and I was embedded into it up to what would have been my knees, but I didn't have knees because I wasn't in a body. I was this ray of light, this golden, white, shimmering, citrine-colored ray of light. And every time I took a breath in, this beautiful, amazing, translucent, iridescent blanket of a horizon would rise up, and it would gently, gracefully fall back down as I would exhale. And as I would inhale again, it would rise up. And what I knew with each inhale and exhale was that light was becoming love and coming through this ray that I was into the planet. And what was happening was love was being breathed to the planet with each breath that I took. And what I mostly want to share with you is this. The sensation was completely complete. There was nothing missing. There was nowhere to go, nothing to become, nothing to prove, nothing to achieve. It was all here already. And I knew complete gratification, complete satisfaction, complete fulfillment. And I also knew that that is what every single one of us are, without exception. And that all we're doing here is bringing light through us into the earthly experience as love, if we only let it be. If we only let that be. But what happens in the splat, we get attached to the mind, and the mind is based in partialness, based in duality. It's only partially awake and mostly not. And so we think we are that, and it's not true. So we have to build the neurocircuitry, and it's easy to do. I'm teaching a workshop this afternoon to show you how to do that, to allow you to have access to the real you. And as you peel yourself off of the mind and you sit down inside this soulful presence, which is the combination of the mind and the body and the breath together, energies change inside of your system. Your reality changes as a byproduct of what you're able to feel and perceive. And so you don't have to walk and sit like this only ever. You don't have to walk through the grocery store like this. Is everything okay? Yeah, I'm just being divine. Because life doesn't respond very well to you that way, right? Out there, like when everybody's all up in their head and they see you being in your wholeness, it's like, it creates some friction. But it's a divine friction, and I want you to understand that you can do this without doing that. You can do this on the inside all the time. And when life is delivering the friction to you that is by divine design, when spirit energy or high frequency energy hits the density of physical matter, friction occurs. It's supposed to be. But if you know who you are, you see that friction as food, as fuel for you to transmute it, to turn it into something better than you found it. And when you do that, you get to experience yourself as the wholeness, the being of divinity that you are. We are anchored in heaven. We are here on the grand adventure to bring heaven to earth, because there's truly only one thing happening here, and it's called heaven earth. And we are here as the answer. So if you're looking for a sign, create it, because you are the creator of your life experience. And if you want to know how to do that, we have to reference inside, because it is in here that the divinity is left unstirred, unaltered in its purity and in its glory. And it is amazing. So thank you for your time today. Blessings to you all. You are amazing.
Thanks for joining us today. And if you like the message, we invite you to like it, share it, and please subscribe.
We are a New Thought church where lives are transformed. So come on, check us out at unityhills.org.
Namaste.